Does using AI in your homeschool mean that you're contributing to the rise of Skynet? Does refusing to use it mean that you're a Luddite living in a cabin in the woods? As always, I like to present a sane approach to homeschool topics like AI. The great news is that we all get to choose what's right for our homeschool. Today, I'm speaking with guest Nancy Manos. I met the lovely Nancy in 2016 when we attended the first meeting of the Homeschool Trade Association. I recently posted a question on Facebook on how people think AI will change homeschooling in the future. It created a lively discussion. I learned about Nancy's new podcast in the comments and wanted to have her as a guest. Today, we'll chat about how we can have a sane and godly approach to AI in our homeschools. Here's more about Nancy. Nancy Manos is a graduated homeschool mom of two and host of the AI and Your Homeschool podcast, where she helps families navigate AI and technology with wisdom, discernment, and confidence. She homeschooled her daughters from preschool through high school and found it to be a rich, rewarding experience. For more than 20 years, she has had the honor of serving homeschool families at the local, state, and national level. Nancy is passionate about helping parents enjoy the journey and savor the gift of time with their children. She enjoys sharing practical encouragement through speaking, writing, and her podcast. Nancy and her husband James live in Gilbert, Arizona. You'll want to listen to the end of our discussion when Nancy shares a practical AI resource you can use with your kids. Now, here's our chat. Nancy, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. Today, we're going to talk about something really interesting to so many of us, which is AI and how we can have a sane approach to using or not using AI in our homeschools. That's going to be up to individual families. But before we dive into that, I would love to have you tell us more about you.
Well, I am a graduated homeschool mom of two. I homeschooled my own girls from preschool through high school. I'm a grandma to two grandboys, and I served in leadership at the statewide homeschool organization for 16 years. And now I am running the national conference for leaders of Christian statewide homeschool organizations. So I'm still serving homeschool families.
Yes. And can you tell us why you chose to homeschool initially? That's what I ask all of my guests.
I love this question so much. So we had friends at church. Our girls were maybe like 1 and 3, and there was something different about their family. We just, you know those families that there's just you're like they interact with each other differently. They interact with others. And so we just got to know their family and found out that they were a homeschool family. And we really liked that the time. Really, it was the gift of time.
Mm.
I figured at that point, if I was accountable to God for raising my children, it would be a lot easier if they were with me all day. And so we just dove in and never looked back.
I love that. And I don't know if I've heard someone say it that way so specifically, but I really love your perspective on that. Many homeschool parents hear AI and they feel a mix of curiosity, especially if they haven't yet explored it or tried
Yeah.
using it, and potentially anxiety. So, what do you think is the most important mindset shift that homeschooling families need to make when it comes to approaching AI? And why do you think it's so important to approach that mindset and to consider that right now?
Well, AI is not a future technology. It's here today, and it's not going away. So the other thing that I think about is, our kids, my grandkids are growing up in a world where the employees, the employers that they are going to work for one day are going to want employees that are skilled with AI. It really is becoming already in such a short amount of time. And so I think this is the world that we live in. God is not surprised by AI, and he's not absent from this moment in history. And so I think we don't need to be afraid. We do need to have a cautious, healthy respect for the risks, which there are many, and using it. But we have an opportunity as parents, especially Christian homeschool parents, to nurture our children and disciple them and raise them up to be able to engage with this technology wisely, thoughtfully, with discernment. And so I think that's where we are in this time in history, and God has given you the children you have, and I believe that we can steward this gift. We can shepherd this season, and raise our children in a way that they have integrity and they know how to. We're going to talk about some of the things that they need to have in place to be able to use AI wisely. But that's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, I I love that, and I would say that I feel that way as well. And we are speaking to homeschooling families who have potentially a wide range of ages and stages. How do you think that our approach as parents and grandparents to introducing AI concepts should differ between maybe a young elementary age child and a teen?
Well, I think we do need to be thinking about it even if we have young children. But here would be my approach. I think the beauty of this too is that you're figuring out your own family's approach. Every family is going to be different. Every child's going to be different. Every parent's going to have a different perspective on this. So by no means telling you what you should do or how you should do it. But here are my thoughts. I think for younger kids, we're focusing on awareness, not access. Um, we want them to understand that AI exists, and maybe what it is in simple terms, but we're not going to turn them loose. Here, use ChatGPT. No, you're not going to, give your 3-year-old a power nailer or something. Like you give them age appropriate tools, but we don't want to shield them from the fact that this exists. They're going to hear about it. So we want to be doing some foundational things. We want them to have good memorization skills and creative play and those foundational skills like reading and writing and comprehension and, those critical thinking, those kind of things. So we want to be this is like the building block era when they're younger. And so we want those good foundations to build upon. Then I think when you have older kids, maybe junior high, high school, AI literacy is going to matter, in college and career. So we need to kind of have an on-ramp for that, I think. So they need to have some practice evaluating AI output. Like that's one of the biggest things. Is this true? Um, because you know, you can ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of them, and it's pulling together pulling together a response from a vast amount of data, but it's also just predictive text. It doesn't have the Holy Spirit or wisdom. It can't think the way that we think, and so, assessing whether information is true and real is going to be a skill that I think our teens really are going to need. Then they need to have good communication skills, because if you're going to tell ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, I'm working on this is what I need. You need to be able to communicate enough information to get the output that you want. And I think that we really want them to know that AI can be a tool that can assist them, but it should never replace their thinking or the muscle building that they do as far as like research and things like that. So I think a 7-year-old needs protection and foundations, and 15-year-olds probably need some guidance and practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, really love that kind of differentiation there. And just so my listeners know, I have been getting frequent emails from developers who have been coming up with what they consider to be safe AI interactive platforms for kids.
Mhm.
And I haven't chosen to share those yet because I just, I want to talk to you, Nancy, first and figure out, what should our overall philosophy of using AI with kids in our homeschools, introducing them to it, helping them use it as a tool. What should it be? So I've been holding off on that. But just to tell you that there are developers working in that space because there is an acknowledgement that there are risks to setting kids loose with AI tools, just like there is setting them loose on the internet. And I love what you had to say about these are the foundational skills that our kids need to learn before they are using AI as an additional tool. Can you talk more about that? What are some of those skills that you think are pivotal for our kids to learn with us and from us before they are becoming heavier users of AI?
Sure. Well, I think integrity is a key one. I think our sin nature leads us towards the path of least resistance. And if I can ask a question and get an answer, and I don't have to do any work, we need to teach our kids grit and resilience, and to build the muscle of doing the work. And honestly, I think doing real things is the way to build those foundational skills. Getting outside and playing, I don't mean unsupervised, but like free play where they have to come up with the activity and negotiate with their siblings or their neighbors or whatever, like how we're going to do and what we're going to do. Like those are building skills that will help them in the future deal with technology. And so, like I said, it's going to be a foundation of knowledge of history and the Bible and, critical thinking skills and that kind of thing, and creativity. I think when we give our kids the opportunity to build those things, then they will be better equipped to engage with technology.
Absolutely. So there are some concerns that
Mhm.
homeschooling parents should be aware of when it comes to kids in particular and AI. So, what do you think are some practical guardrails or conversations that you would recommend that families put in place?
Well, I think to be aware, especially teens, that AI is very affirming. And if you've had any conversation with ChatGPT or Claude, it is like, Melanie, that was such great insight. What a great question. You're thinking about this right. It's very affirming, and it can sound human. I think that is a huge thing that we need to be aware of, and teach our kids, because it isn't. It really is an algorithm dishing up predictive text that sounds human. It's been trained and it's only going to sound more human. And so I think something that's really important is to guard real relationships in person with real humans. And so AI, treat it as a tool to assist, not you know therapist. That's become a big thing. I know you are a therapist, and so I'm sure you're seeing this, but
Mhm,
it's a little scary to me. Grown-ups are like, I'm telling all my problems to ChatGPT and it's giving me great advice. And I'm thinking, but it's not the Holy Spirit and it's not
mhm,
real wisdom. And
mhm,
also, when you're together with people, humans, they can see things in your life and speak into your life and help you in a way that, because you're not going to share probably all the stuff with a computer program.
mhm,
So just the insights. But I think we also need to teach our kids discernment. That's a huge skill. They need to know to ask, is it true? How do we know it's true? How do we verify it? What evidence supports it? What's missing from this answer? So, teaching them to ask good questions, I think, is really important. I think curiosity is going to become more important, not less. So yeah, I mean, I just think all of those things, creativity, character matters. We need to be shaping our children's hearts in a way that when they are tempted to cheat, tempted to take the path of least resistance, that they realize that they're robbing themselves of the learning
mhm.
opportunity.
Right. Right. And, I think another thing that goes along with that, because before there was AI, there were peer groups who are not having a good um, effect on your child. They're not good role models for your child.
Mhm.
But if they affirm your child where you are not, you can have a serious problem. And I think AI is now taking that role as well. So it's a reminder, I think, to all of us to be affirming people in our lives and not just focusing on, well, this is what you could do better and do this better and do that better. But that you are so creative. I mean, my AI tells me, oh, you're just such a compassionate person. You're just all these wonderful things. And it just is reminding me that I need to be offering people that kind of affirmation in my personal life as well. And I think maybe um, having parents talk about potential scenarios where AI becomes a problem with their
Mhm.
kids and what they would do in these various situations would be a great idea. I really love that. Okay, so next, I would love to have you walk us through some of the concrete everyday ways that AI can actually benefit a homeschooling family because we've been talking about, oh, these are some problems, but there are some real benefits. Can you talk with us about those?
Sure. Well, think about if you had a mother's helper. Now, obviously, a AI tool cannot change diapers or clean your kitchen, but like, what kind of help would you want if you had a virtual assistant or an intern or something? What are some of the things that you do that you could speed up using AI to save you time so you had more time with your kids? You could be baking in the kitchen and, those kind of things. So you can, maybe you're doing a unit study on ancient Egypt and you want some, hands-on learning ideas or some, whatever craft projects or, uh, I don't know, whatever, all sorts of enrichment activity ideas. You can brainstorm unit studies. You can brainstorm, maybe you need to solve a problem like, okay, my child does not like handwriting. What are some creative ways that we could, you know, build those muscles and give them practice that aren't writing in a notebook?
Hmm.
Or, like, I know I came up with this on my own pre-AI, but my girls didn't like handwriting. And so finally I let them write on the dry erase board. And suddenly it was like a kinesthetic art activity kind of project that now it was fun. So,
Hmm.
you can, if you don't have that idea, which remember, God wants to, he's the creator of the universe and he lives inside you and he is creative. So we don't always need AI, but if you're looking for creative ideas, maybe you're looking for some enrichment activities in your area. Maybe that you're looking for field trips or museums or something that would enhance something you're studying. It could be help with meal planning. I always joke about this because the thing that probably pushed me over the edge, and probably most moms, is they want to eat all the time. They've had breakfast, they've had a snack, they've had lunch, they've had a snack, and now they
Yeah.
want to know what's for dinner. And
Hmm.
you think this might be the straw that breaks this camel's back. So it can help you with meal planning. So you're not, if that's an area that's a struggle, maybe some scheduling help or travel planning.
Hmm.
We just did a
Hmm.
vacation with our friends for our anniversaries, and we were going to San Diego, and I knew the things we wanted to do, and I asked ChatGPT, put this in order, like we're going to be on these days. What are the optimal days to do this, this, and this? And, where do we get the best deals and things like that? So it can save you time, field trip ideas, things like that. It might be maybe you need some book list ideas to go with something you're studying or create some project ideas. I will say this, take the output with a grain of salt because you could say, I want wholesome books for ages 8 to 10. Okay, well, doesn't know what wholesome means, doesn't know what you mean by wholesome.
Hmm.
So we need to ask good questions, but we also need to evaluate what it puts out. So I have a few ideas for students as well, if you want those.
Sure, I would love those.
Okay. So I was thinking about with supervision, maybe you're not getting a math concept, or you need it demonstrated to you in a different way. AI can really help explain concepts in multiple ways. It can do, kind of visual examples as well. So it can give you explanations that help you over the hump of, I am still not getting this concept. Maybe it's you want to do some creative writing and you need some writing prompts, or you're preparing for a debate, speech and debate. So I can give you ideas. Maybe you're at the point as a high school student where you're looking at what kind of careers could I go into? It can help you explore some interests. So those are just a few ways. There's about a million ways you could use AI.
Yes, there are. A lot of parents really feel overwhelmed by the prospect of AI and they're not even sure where they should begin to use it. How do you recommend that a family cut through all of the competing ideas for how we should be using it and maybe what platforms and all of that and land on an approach to AI that reflects their own family values?
Well, I would say start with principles, not technology. So we've talked about a lot of that. And I would say don't even start with which tool should we use, but begin with, as a parent, what kind of children are we trying to raise? What values matter most to our family? What skills do we want our children to develop? So I would start there. And then your technology decisions will kind of flow from there, right? So I would say don't don't freak out about, okay, well, do I use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Copilot or, what do I use? Pick one. Just pick one. They all have a free version, and play with it in a
Mhm.
safe, wise way. So, pick something. Sometimes it's like, I do a lot of email marketing and that kind of thing. And I'll take an email and I'll be like, could you make this sound better? I feel
Mhm.
like here's the ideas, or here's the ideas that I have. Could you put them in order? So, like, obviously that isn't going to apply to a homeschool necessarily, but think of something that you're doing and
Mhm.
how could this be improved? Or what am I missing? Like, you can ask questions. The other thing you can do is you can ask ChatGPT or Claude. We're a Christian homeschool family. We're a little nervous about using AI. What would you like? What are our, top 5 steps to get started with AI? And I would be careful. One of the guardrails I would give is don't share personal information. You don't need to give the internet, the web of things, your children's names and ages and things like that.
Mm.
But you can say, we've got children in this range, um, boys and girls, or boys, because sometimes that's helpful because
Mhm.
boys and girls are different. But you know, be wise in what you share. But you can ask, do some experimenting together, have a lot of conversation around, okay, we asked this question. We didn't get what we wanted. What additional information could we have provided? So help your kids help think through the prompting process, right? And be talking about, okay, this is what ChatGPT said. Do you think it's true? Asking those
Mhm.
questions. And I think giving yourself permission to learn as you go. The thing that I use AI every day. I'm learning about AI. I'm excited about AI. I feel overwhelmed. Like, because even the tools that I use have 10 new features that came
Mhm.
out since yesterday. I can't
Mhm.
possibly learn them. And then there's another 1,000 applications and tools that have come out. So I
Mhm.
think we just need to be like, okay, I'm going to start in this little corner of the world, and it's okay if everything else is moving at warp speed.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that, and just keep it light, just something interesting to try out, or if you've already been dabbling in AI, to think about or even ask, as you so wisely said, ask AI, what other areas of my life could I consider as a homeschooling mom? Could I consider asking you to help me with?
Yeah.
And you could be really pleasantly surprised by some of the ideas. Some of them, no, they won't be good, but others would be really, really helpful.
Mhm.
Well, Nancy, I have a feeling that our talk today, probably next year, it'll be obsolete already, because so many things
Right.
are changing. It's just so, so fast. But I have a resource to offer our listeners to stay on top of it, and that is your podcast. Can you tell us where we can find that and listen to it?
Yes, I've started a new podcast. It's called AI and Your Homeschool. And NancyManos.com will get you to all the links. You can find me on, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube. I also have created a free resource for families. It's a family discussion guide. And so it's got questions for parents, questions for teens, family discussion questions, and then some of those real world scenarios that you were talking about that they could talk about. If this came up, how would we handle it? So that's a free resource on my website at nancymanos.com as well.
All right, wonderful. And are you on social media as well?
Yes, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Mrs. Nancy Manos everywhere.
Okay, Mrs. Nancy Manos. So I'm going to put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about this topic. I have a feeling that we could talk about it for a very long time.
This
Oh,
is a great encouragement. I hope to parents. We just want to
yes.
remove the fear and give some confidence and just remember that God is still on the throne and we
Hmm.
don't have to be afraid, even though there are some scary aspects.
Absolutely. I think that is just so good. And no one can tell you what to do in your own family with respect to AI. You get to make all the choices. And that is one of the things that I love about homeschooling. Well, Nancy, thanks so much again for joining us. After I turned off the recording, Nancy and I talked a lot more about AI and parenting. She is an excellent mentor, and I encourage you to subscribe to her podcast if you're interested in learning more. Find the link to the discussion guide in the show notes at homeschoolsanity.com/sane AI. I will also link my initial episode on AI in homeschooling if you're interested in ideas for using it effectively. Thanks for taking the time to listen or watch today. Have a happy homeschool week. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.